With that 22-19 overtime loss to the Chargers, the Eagles have now lost 3 straight games, and they sit at 8-5. This Eagles team is starting to remind me a lot of that 2023 Eagles team as far as its late season trajectory goes, and I'm going to explain why in this video. If you're new here, please subscribe to The Era with Brian Gregoire. This is a channel that covers the NFL, college football, and college basketball from a business standpoint. We're building this community brick by brick, and I would love for you to be a part of it. So hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Yes, both the 2023 Eagles team and this year's Eagles team started the season hot. The Eagles were 10-1 at one point in 2023. They were rolling, but then they plateaued. They collapsed late in the season. They only won one more game and finished the regular season at 11-6 before getting destroyed by the Buccaneers in the first round of the playoffs. This year's Eagles team, we know the story. They started off 8-2, but they've now lost 3 straight, and they're now 8-5. We know that. However, the most interesting parallel that I've observed between the 2023 Eagles and this year's Eagles team is the reason behind the plateau. Both teams are uber talented, extremely capable teams that are constructed to run the table, not only in the NFC East, but the NFC overall. And both teams found ways to win games early in the season. However, we as fans could always detect that something was a little bit off. Both teams had underlying problems, underlying issues that got exposed as the season unfolded and as we got later into the season, which explains both teams' late season drop-offs. I've identified several problems that both the 2023 Eagles and this year's Eagles team have possessed. Here they are. Play calling, execution, yes, injuries to a certain degree, but most importantly, internal drama within the team and the organization. Let's start with chatting a little bit about play calling, and we can reference that Chargers game to supplement the Eagles' play calling and how it has not been up to par this season. And I want to clarify one thing here. This does not all fall on the shoulders of Kevin Patullo. Nick Sirianni has to wear this just as much, but I'm sure that he is. Take a look at the Chargers game. Saquon Barkley in the first half. He had 13 carries for 69 yards, including 1 touchdown run that he ripped off. I mean, he was looking like prime 2024 Saquon in the first half, and the Eagles have been looking for that all season, and they finally got it. Well, how do they respond in the second half? By giving him just a measly 5 carries. When something's working, you've got to lean into it. The passing game was not working for the Eagles against the Chargers. Jalen Hurts was just off. The offensive line wasn't playing great. The Chargers defense was playing out of its minds. But the run game was working in the first half. And that was one of those games where you didn't really have to score a lot to win. So lean into that run game, ground and pounds, exhaust that Chargers defense, win time of possession, and you've got a dub. But the Eagles chose not to do that. And so through that, they beat themselves. That is how play calling has gotten in the way for the Eagles this season. And it was the same situation. It was the same scenario back in 2023 as well. Execution. The Eagles' offense this year, it just looks slow. It looks sluggish. It looks out of sync. Timing is just off. The whole body of work, despite all the talent on the offensive side of the ball for the Eagles, the whole body of work is just not coming together. And there was one play in that Chargers game that perfectly illustrates this. It was that interception that Jalen Hurts had in his attempted pass to A.J. Brown. Yes, the pass was a little bit high, but if you're A.J. Brown, you've got to come down with that. You have some of the best hands in the NFL, some of the strongest hands in the NFL. You're one of the best overall receivers in the NFL. You've got to deliver on that. You've got to come down with that ball, even though it's a little bit high. That's what's expected out of you. Being a receiver of that caliber, And Jalen Hurts has got to deliver a better ball on that route, on that play. So it's that kind of misexecution that leads to turnovers and then a subsequent shift in momentum. And it doesn't need to be like that with an offense this talented, but something is just a little bit off. Like we've seen plays like that for the Eagles all season long. The game ended against the Chargers in a similar fashion. Jalen Hurts trying to force a pass that wasn't there, gets tipped and picked. The offense, I feel like, is, again, making it very hard on itself to succeed. Execution has been off, timing has been off, and I'm not sure that's something that's correctable at this stage of the season. Another stat from the Chargers game that illustrates how execution has been an issue for the Eagles offense is the Eagles drive chart. I mean, look at this. The Eagles had drives that went down to the Chargers 12, 17, 21, 23, 26, 30, and 36. You know how many times the Eagles scored a touchdown on one of those drives? Zip. When you get inside your opponent's, I would say 35 or 40 yard line, you've got to get 7. You've got to try your best to get 7. At least get 3 out of it. But when you're driving, when you're making all the effort to get down the field, you've got to make something of it. And that has been an issue for the Eagles offense all season long. It just looks slow and it doesn't look confident. And it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds in these final few weeks in the playoffs. Let's talk about the injuries a little bit. And for Eagles fans out there, don't use this as an excuse, because every team at this time of year is banged up. I mean, look at the team they played in, the Chargers. That's one of those banged up teams in the league. That they virtually don't have an offensive line. The running back room has been in shambles all season long. They still found a way to win. So don't use it as an excuse. But I'm going to acknowledge how injuries have contributed to holding this team back, especially in comparison to the 2024 team. Health is wealth. I mean, that was the theme in 2024. The Eagles were one of the healthiest teams in the NFL all season long, and that's how they were able to maximize performance, go to the Super Bowl and win, dominate the Chiefs. Hasn't been the case this year. Of course, Lane Johnson is down right now with that foot injury. Cam Jurgens has missed 2 games at one point, and Landon Dickerson has been not 100% all year long. He's had to miss some games, spend some time out of games at certain points. So the Eagles' offensive line has not been able to get the push that it had last year, and that's the component of this team that I want to acknowledge has been held back and truncated because of injuries. Saquon was able to go bonkers in 2024 because that Eagles offensive line was getting like 5 yards of push per play. I mean, I've seen very few offensive lines perform as consistently well as the Eagles did in 2024. It was unbelievable. It was nuts. This year, it's been a little more porous. The protection has not been the same, and so Saquon has not been able to get going like he has in the past, and Jalen Hurts hasn't been able to resort to play-action passes as much as he would like to and find success in those as he was in 2024. And so injuries on the offensive line, I mean, y'all know how seriously I take the trenches. If you're not good in the trenches, you're not good anywhere. The Eagles were buttoned up in the trenches on both sides of the ball in 2024. They had some issues in 2023. In 2025, the Eagles' defensive line has been phenomenal. But offensive line, there's been some injuries. There's been some guys that aren't at 100%. So I'm going to acknowledge that. That has caused problems for this offense, especially when it comes to rhythm and flow and execution. Let's talk about the internal drama a little bit, because this is something that I really want to highlight. I'm just going to call it for what it is. Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown have a weird, wonky relationship. And it's one of those things that resurfaces when things aren't going well for the Eagles. It relapses. It's always going to be a factor. When the Eagles are winning, nobody talks about it. But when the Eagles start losing, Philly is a loud city with loud fans and a very vocal media base. And so when the Eagles start underperforming, it gets talked about. Something that I noticed in 2023 with the Eagles that I'm seeing unfold again this season is that I feel like this team is so good and so talented and so aware of that it's almost like it has to create a challenge just to keep things interesting. And so subsequently, I feel like the Eagles manufacture drama at times when it's not there and there's no reason to have it. But they create it and then it becomes a thing. And then that leads to anxiety throughout the entire building. You know, like after a while, the Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown thing resurfaces. And then people in the Philly media start chirping about it. Teammates start putting their 2 cents in. And then it just becomes a whole shit show. And where there's drama, there's anxiety. There's that walking on eggshells feeling. And I can see that in the Eagles' body language on the fields and on the sidelines. Saquon Barkley has even called out this season, saying that the Eagles' energy on the sideline just straight up sucks. And so, the Eagles, don't overthink it. You're talented, and you know you're that talented. Tom Brady always had a knack of creating motivation for himself, especially when he started to feel complacent. When you're winning multiple Super Bowls in a row, it's like, all right, I've already done it all. What is there to achieve next? He would create motivation for himself. And I think that is the framework of thinking that the Eagles have to start to adopt. Create motivation for yourselves. Don't create drama. The motivation is what keeps things interesting. That's just a little observation that I've made. I don't know how real any of this drama on the Eagles is, but I feel like it's something that gets manufactured when complacency starts to set in with this team. All in all, this recent stretch for the Eagles is concerning and straight up inexcusable. I mean, you can't blow a 21-point lead to a division rival in the Cowboys, who mathematically still has a chance to win the division. I mean, when you're on the road and you have that kind of lead, you've got to close the door. You can't get comfortable, let them back into the game, and subsequently let them win the game. The Bears game, I get it. Sometimes you're just off. That offense could never really get going. But you can't score only 15 points at home in the Link against Chicago. You got to do better than that. I mean, come on, guys. Let's just be real here. And then, finally, you can't lose to a Chargers team that's banged up. Like I said, their offensive line is beat up. They have some starters out for the season, some key starters out for the season, in both Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. That running back room has been a mess for the Chargers. I mean, they just got Hampton back. And the Eagles were coming off of practically a bye week because that Chicago game was the Black Friday game. That was on a Friday. So they had a whole extra week this past weekend and then had this Chargers game on Monday Night Football. And they still couldn't win. Oh, and yeah, Justin Herbert fractured a bone in his hand the week before, got it operated on, has it all wrapped up in the game against the Eagles. I mean, that is a clear weakness for the Eagles to capitalize on. They still let the Chargers win. Those are 3 losses that are inexcusable, and you look at it right now, the Eagles could be 10-3 or 11-2, but they're 8-5. And I don't want to overreact here because a lot of teams out there would kill to be 8-5. The Eagles are still leading the division. They're still on pace to win the NFC East. So let's not get all frantic here. I don't want to overreact. But the Eagles are a team that has a high standard. And they should. They just won a Super Bowl last year. So the goal is to build off of that momentum. And when you feel it starting to slip, yeah, the fan base, the organization, the media, you're going to start to get a little bit concerned. Especially because I don't know how many of these issues that the Eagles have right now are correctable. I will say, there are some bright spots when it comes to the Eagles right now. The Eagles' defense has been exceptional. And I think that the Eagles' record could be even worse right now if that wasn't the case. I mean, they definitely could have lost that Lions game if it wasn't for the Eagles' defense and 30-mile-an-hour straight line wins. The offense couldn't do shit that night. And so, with the way that Lions offense performs consistently, they could have lost that game as well. But the Eagles' defense has been great, both with the defensive fronts and the secondary. I wouldn't expect anything less out of a Vic Fangio defense anyways. And the Eagles have a favorable schedule to end the season. They host the Raiders this weekend. I would hope they win that game. I hope that that's not a repeat of the Arizona game back in 2023. I really don't think that it will be, though. The Raiders are kind of a hot mess right now. Then they go on the road to Washington. Then you go on the road to Buffalo, and you host Washington again. But Washington is just like the Raiders, one of the worst teams in the NFL. Banged up, caught the injury bug bad. It's just been a season to forget for the Commanders. But going to Buffalo, playing Josh Allen on the second to last week of the year, it'll be cold. It'll likely be snowy up in northern New York. Trust me, I know. Wearing my Oscars shirt right here. Gotta use the right finger. Wearing my Oscars shirt right here. Warrensburg, New York. It gets cold up there. I'm a northern New York boy, so I know. Probably going to be snowy in Buffalo. You're playing Josh Allen. I think that team will be hot. Philly probably loses that game. If they do, I still think they win 3 or 4 to end the season. Because their last game of the season is at home against Washington, we all know what's going to happen there. And so the Eagles can use that final stretch of schedule to build some momentum that hopefully translates into the playoffs. And maybe this is just a blip of the radar. Just like we faced last season in December when Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown were kind of feuding a little bit, and then the Eagles just went on a tear after that. Maybe that'll be the case here. Maybe this is just a low point for the Eagles. But I don't know how correctable some of those issues are that the Eagles have, and this season does feel a lot like 2023 for that reason. It's all about morale. If the Eagles can repair its morale, get their swagger back, and start to execute better, I'm confident in the run that this team can possibly go on. But if not, it could be another puzzling collapse, just like 2023. But let me know what y'all think about this video and the Eagles' outlook for the rest of this season in the comment section below. Thank y'all for watching. Have a great day.